Good evening and welcome to the May 13th, 2019 meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. In accordance with open meeting law, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience also recording. Seeing none, could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under public comment, we have Mr. Alan Rafferty who wants to speak to elections. Please come up. As you know, the elections are under the purview of the town clerk. So if it's specific to the town elections, it would be best to ask her.
Oh, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make a statement. Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. Before I begin, I just wanted to say I'd like to express my sympathies to the family and friends of Ann Weston, who recently passed away. She was a tireless and long-term member of the Conservation Commission. I don't think we'll ever find anyone again who is so committed to the role that she had and the one that she played in the town. I want to speak just briefly tonight to the state of democracy in the town of Auburn. I checked the town's clerk's webpage recently, and I discovered that in the town meeting races, we have 5 precincts. 8 positions are open in each precinct. This year, there's only one precinct that actually has 8 people running for 8 positions. In the other 4 precincts, there aren't enough people running for those positions. They're down 1 or 2 candidates. I've lived in the town for a couple of decades now, and I remember a time when you'd have 16 people running for 8 positions. So why is this happening? In addition, the rest of the races that are happening in the town, there's only one competitive race, and that is for the Board of Selectmen. None of the other races are competitive. There's enough people running for each position. So technically, you wouldn't even have to vote for any of them, and they would get elected. Now, why is this happening? Last year, I brought up, after last year's elections, I says the turnout in the town was just horrible, was terrible. Auburn was not doing very well in turnout. And what could we do about it? Since then, I've paid attention. I haven't seen any effort to promote people running for office or people that turn out for the election. Whatever effort you made, I didn't see any of it. And I read the Telegram and Gazette. I read the websites of the town almost every night to see what's going on. Is it because everything is hunky-dory in the town of Auburn? Is that what it is? Or is it just too difficult to run for office? Or do people feel there's nothing they really can do about it, so let's not bother going? I attended town meeting. And in town meeting, when they brought up the budget and they asked people to put holds on any of the account items that they wanted to discuss, not a single hold was put on any of them. In the past, you'd have maybe at least a dozen people who wanted to talk about it, but town meeting members just sat there and basically said, no, it's fine with us. Everything you tell us is just hunky-dory. So my question is, what is going on in the town of Auburn? Is everything just hunky-dory, or is democracy dead in the town of Auburn? Thank you.
Mr. Rafferty. We have no public hearings or presentations, no communications. Under Board of Selectmen general items, we have Sheldon's Holly Davidson. Is there someone there for that? Okay, if you can come up, please. So we have Sheldon's Harley-Davidson, 914 Southbridge Street, a license application for one-door entertainment licenses and one-day beer and wine licenses per the event calendar for 2019. Good evening. If you could just give your name for the record, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Geraldine Scavera.
And are you the one that's participated through the process of this, including going to DCG?
Yes, ma'am.
Board members have questions. Do you have questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. I was not at last meeting, and from what I understand, we granted, a single day license?
Yes, sir.
After the second year.
Haven't seen the minutes, so I was just wondering, were there any issues as far as why we went with one day, or because we did the one and now we're looking at 8 more? So I just wanted to know what the discussion was.
Through the chair, and I would turn to the members of the board also, but I'll try to summarize. The last time we were here, there were only 3 members of the board. So the chair at the time had notified the applicant that under the charter, to get a vote of approval when 3 members are here, you need a unanimous vote of the 3 members. So rather than taking a risk that the 3 members may or may not approve the entire calendar, the board decided to approve one event, which would get them through until this meeting, and then do the remaining at this meeting. That was also done last year. And at that point, last year, it was done to determine if there were going to be any problems or had there been any problems when the first meeting was, when the first event was approved. So it was really a matter of there were only 3 members approved the event that was coming up between the last meeting and this meeting, and then take the rest of it when hopefully there would be a full board. Is that, summarize it, Mr.
Hold
Carpenter?
for one moment. So I do want to make you aware that we are short 1 member tonight, so you would still need 3 of the 4 of us to vote in favor. Do you want to move forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Berthium, did you have something?
Just so, it looks like there was an event on 4/22 through 4/26, and I assume that went off without a hitch. Were there any reports back to our police, fire, or anything like
I
that?
am not aware of any.
Not aware of that.
420 was our safety Saturday. Police and fire were there. It went off great except for rain. And then 426 got rained out. And we didn't have a permit for it, I don't think, anyway, so.
Did you have live music?
No.
I don't think so, yeah. So with the board's permission, I received an email from a resident who had planned to be here, so I would just like to read it, and then I'll put my phone away. I heard tonight that Sheldon's is asking for an entertainment licenses this summer. On behalf of my family, I would like to voice my concerns about Sheldon getting entertainment licenses over the summer. Over many previous summers, I have heard music and other loud noises from Sheldon's on most weekends. When I personally contacted the company on numerous occasions, and they informed me they could play music and have live entertainment because the town approved the permits. I am asking that these permits with live music and anything anything with very loud sound not be approved, as it does not allow for young children to sleep, and Sheldon's has never been courteous to this in the past. As other dealerships in town do not have such events, I ask that this dealership does not get these as well. Thank you very much, Megan McCrillis and family. Dr. Megan McCrillis, public health nurse. And I'll print this out for Sharon for the record. Do members have anything? I'll just, I've voiced my concerns in the past. I just always disclose that I do live up on the hill, so residents have contacted me about the noise, but you know, Mr. Carpenter, at the close of last year's discussions, did make a valid point, and I've thought a lot about it over the years, over the past year. Sheldon's is a motorcycle dealership. We have many dealerships in the town, including automobile dealerships. Automobile dealerships aren't even allowed to have outdoor PA systems to page employees, etc. My concern is that we're treating an automobile dealership differently than we are auto dealerships, and we're setting a very bad precedent. This is not a restaurant, a place of entertainment. It's a dealership, so I will not be supporting it. Anyone else? Any other comments? Mr.
I'd
Berthium?
just make a comment that, being, having owned a motorcycle before and going to events at motorcycle dealerships, and I'm not sure about car dealerships, but, this type of thing does go on. And, basically, I think that we've tried to wean down the end times on things. We've tried to, work with Sheldon's. We would ask that, if it's, if I were to approve this tonight, that you really do consider, if people are calling in, that they, they're not just, trying to make trouble. Maybe they have legitimate reasons for calling. So, I'm seeing most of these events are 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm assuming, I don't have a calendar right in front of me, but most of them are probably Saturdays,
Friday nights, 5 to 8, and right at 8.
Friday night.
The bands all play way in the back in a tent.
Yeah, and I think it's, the unfortunate thing is that regardless of where you guys put the music, it's in that hollow. I think that, the restaurant across the street had issues for years and years, and it's just, I think the music just automatically, for whatever reason, the noise increases from that area, and it's nothing to do with what you think is a reasonable amount of noise. For some reason, in that area, just carries. I'm inclined to approve it, just saying that, I realize that it's a promotional thing that you guys do. I just, would hope that you continue to, be respectful of the people that are in the neighborhood, and if somebody is calling and they say that, that's, the music is just ridiculous, that they should be able to hear you turn it down, okay? That would be my one comment through the whole thing. Other than that, I would approve, or I will make a motion to approve the dates, with that condition.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We're still under discussion. Is there further discussion? Mr. Carpenter?
I would be inclined to attempt to give you at least 2 dates, see how they continue to go. I personally didn't get any complaints, but you said the April one was rained out. So that's probably why my phone didn't ring, thankfully. And I would be willing to give you the 2 dates in May, see how it goes. And I know you've reduced the amount of events you've had from years past, but I do notice in May and June, they're kind of back to back. So whereas July, August, and September, you're backing off to just one.
We only have one in May and one in June. I don't have 2 musics in May.
We have 5/17 and 5/22.
522 is a fashion show.
Yeah.
No, that was canceled.
Okay. Well,
So 522 is canceled?
Correct.
so you just have 5/17. Any other dates that
6/21 would be our next music event.
6/21, so the Father's Day event will be no music?
Correct.
Okay.
If I could just ask, with the board's permission, this audio recording was made on one of the nights from a home up on the hill, and I just want you to understand what the residents are listening to. Oh, wrong one. That's just the motorcycles. Hold on. That's when they were having the show, which I'm sure you can hear them as well. I just had it. I just played it. Go ahead, Mr. Carpenter. I'll pull it up again.
Oh, no, I didn't know if there were any abutters present, Madam Chair, before we take a vote.
Are there any abutters
I want to speak to it.
regarding, okay, if you could just step aside, just let him come up. Please just give your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is David Norwood. I live on 60 Hill Street in Auburn, which is probably 0.2 of a mile from the dealership, I would say. And we've had a lot of issues with the motorcycle shows and the live music. It's just been really loud. I have triple pane windows set up in the back of my house. I have a newborn baby I try to put to sleep. He's not going to be able to sleep through all the noise that that makes. Through brand new triple pane windows, you can hear their music. It's atrocious. It's too loud. It's not reasonable. I know the first show is set for May 17th. That's a school night. I know my kid's too young to go to school, but there's kids next to me on both sides. They're going to school. That's unacceptable. Could they do the music indoors possibly? Is that an option that we could do with closed doors to buffer the sound, like the bar down the street does? I mean, that's one thought I had that might work for everyone here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Mr. Berthium?
May 17th is a Friday night. What's
Well,
that?
they still consider it as to keep kids on schedule. They consider it, while kids are in school, it's a school calendar night.
Okay. I don't recognize it personally as a school night. I recognize that as the first night of a weekend. So again, I think it's a 3-hour thing. It's a way for an Auburn business to promote. It's the type of business that it is. It's the type of promotions that business often has, whether you're at Seacoast Harley-Davidson, Boston Harley-Davidson, Rochester Harley-Davidson. Again, I'm not ignoring the fact that
That's a Sunday.
you have a child, a baby, and certainly I can feel for you having a problem putting the baby to sleep, but I don't think that we can stop a business in town from trying to have a promotion ever for a 3-hour period. I think that we really, should not be stopping these events from happening. I will amend my motion to either just the 517 or the 517 and 621 events, which are the next two music events, if that would please the board. But I do think that we should not try to halt this altogether. Like I say, it is unfortunate that it's a hollow and music carries, and I do hope that Sheldons will be considerate of people in the area. So if they do complain and that you're 0.2 of a mile away and the music is blaring, that you would be able to, if you called, hear a decrease in the music. And then, obviously we can address it if there's further issues. So.
Mr. Berthium, can you give me those dates on your motion again, please?
That would be Friday, 5/17, and Friday, 6/21.
Are you including the Saturday, 6/16, or is that a separate motion?
We were told that the 6/16 is we can include the outdoor license, but we were told that that's a no music event.
Okay,
So we could include that.
So we're on the outdoor entertainment right now. The motion is for the outdoor entertainment license for 5/17 and 5/21. Mr. Carpenter.
Madam Chair, if I can...
I'm sorry, 6/21, I misspoke.
Okay. The resident asked, can you put the music indoors Is that something that Sheldon's can do to prevent?
There is a possibility. What I will do is monitor this first event's decimals with the band and make sure that it's not as loud as it has been in the past. It's in a tent with all sides tucked back in the back. We do have a large garage, like storage area that I can go back and talk about putting them in. I don't see why we couldn't. So that would push them into the inside of a building.
And I'll just make you aware that at previous meetings, we have had residents come from the streets in the back where you're discussing. We haven't heard from just people on the hill. We've heard from people on the back street. Again, families with young children. Mr. Carpenter?
I guess I would like to restrict the playing of music to indoors. That seems like a reasonable ask, and if you can accomplish it, that's fine. Otherwise, I would not support music just because of the continuous issues, and, obviously we want you to be successful. You've been a very good business to the town, so we certainly don't want to inhibit your success, but we also have to think of we can talk about other dealerships in other towns, but the reality is Auburn's commercial districts always abut a neighborhood, and we have to be very sensitive to the neighbors because, there are actually people who live on the hill who actually lived there before Route 20 was what it is. So I know some people will say, well, but you bought knowing that it was there. Well, I don't necessarily buy that argument. People still have the right to enjoy their property and not have it constantly interrupted by any business, I would say.
So I have a couple of questions on this, Mr. Carpenter. For clarification, would you consider a tent indoors? And if we are looking for an indoor entertainment license, and I have to consult the manager, that requires a different type of license, correct? It's not, an outdoor, there are two different licenses, an outdoor entertainment license and an indoor entertainment license. So with your proposal, we would not be able to issue anything tonight.
Yeah.
I'm just making you aware of that. If you're considering the tent enough cover for the sound, it's still an outdoor event, if that satisfies you, but...
Let's try it, let's see, and...
Are you saying that it's going to be in an indoor tent with four sides?
No, where we've always had it and where it has been placed in the past is a large outdoor tent with sides. If you want us to go indoors, right behind the tent, there's a large storage area. It's like a large part of our building that's a garage that we could potentially put a band there, and I think that's a great idea. We've never done it in the past. We've never had to do it in the past. We've never been asked to do that in the past. So honestly, I think it's a great idea.
So just for clarification, what he's considering indoors would be your outdoor tent, but it has four sides to it. Am I correct?
Correct.
Your proposal is currently a tent outdoors, but it has four sides to it.
Correct.
So it gives the appearance of being indoors.
Okay, if you want to call that indoor.
Is that clarify it?
Through the chair, I would just, if I may, I just want to make sure we may have to just have that tent inspected by the building commissioner for safety purposes, which would happen anyway.
All tents are,
regardless.
correct?
All tents are. So that would have to happen anyway. And yes, and if it's indoor, which it's not going to be because that's a different license. But if the board considers indoor in the future, that is a different, not only is it a different application, but it's also different safety issues that have to be looked at as far as capacity, safety issues, egress, number of people in the building, things like that.
So the motion right now is a motion to approve a license for May 17th and June 21st for an outdoor entertainment license that would include music being played in a tent with four sides. Is there further discussion? Mr. Carpenter?
I would also make sure that, I know that we added this to the last meeting, which I know you weren't at, but that beer can only be sold in the tent that is identified as the beer tent. People can't be
Yeah.
walking around.
We're just on the entertainment license right now. We'll take, because of the controversy, I know, but the controversy with the outdoor entertainment, so.
I would be happy to support 517. Let's see if the tent works to sufficiently reduce the noise so that you can have your event and you're not affecting the neighbors, but I would not support a multi-event because I want to make sure that we are watching it.
And just for clarification, that 6/16 is a Sunday Father's Day event, and it's just an indoor Father's Day appreciation event. It's not any entertainment.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Berthium and then Mr. Liberty.
I will again amend my motion then to include the dates of 5/17 and 6/16 only.
Okay.
6/16 doesn't have an outdoor component. It says outdoor entertainment, but it does not. That's why you
So we
wanted,
don't, so I need to
You
amend it to
don't.
only include 5/17.
if that's what. if-
That's how I'll amend the motion.
So the motion, Mr. La Liberty, do you?
I'll second the motion again.
Thank you. Okay. So the amended motion is approval for one outdoor entertainment license on Friday, May 17th, which includes, the outdoor entertainment is to be considered in a tent with 4 sides outdoors. Is there any further discussion?
I would just suggest that we include the language for the, we're not talking about the beer tent, but
Yeah.
the DCG.
Okay, that's,
We usually.
that's here. Yeah,
You want me to read the whole,
please.
did you say please?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the licenses provided that all applicable requirements, the license provide that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon them. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed upon the licenses. And that's...
For May 17th.
Motion.
On May 17th as well.
And
For
we
May
have-
17th.
And we have a second from Mr. La Liberty. Just under discussion, I just will again voice my concern that we have multiple auto dealerships in the town who I feel we've opened the door for promotional events with live music on Friday evenings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. So you have a license for May 17th. You can check with, yes, May 17th, right? Now, we have to take action on the one-day beer and wine licenses. Do you want to take up the one or all of them?
I'm going to take up 517 and 616. Would that make sense?
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the license for one-day beer and wine for the dates of 5/17 and 6/16, 2019, for
Is
the
there-
time shown on the event calendar provided in our packet, and also with the requirement that all beer and wine be consumed within the beer tent, that there is to be no roving around with alcohol on site, and that no off-site parking is provided.
I'll second for discussion.
We're under discussion, Mr. O'Leary?
Through the chair, in the past, I know that for our very last meeting, we attached the same requirement, but I don't know if there's been any problems with Sheldon's providing beer and wine, so I was wondering if it's necessary to confine people to a tent, or what's the reasoning for doing that? I mean, I know we did it last time, but I don't know if there was anything wrong with the way they've done it before.
So I would just comment on that. I wasn't part of the process last time, but when we approve any other license holder for outdoor alcohol, they are contained to that one area to ensure that there's no issues, and it's easier to monitor. So that's just been our past practice. If someone, I believe we have one right now, and it's at Hallian's, they applied for an outdoor alcohol license, and they are contained to just that roped-off area so that it's easier to monitor. It's difficult for the TIPS certified service to monitor if they're roaming around with the beer.
And I would just add, having visited Sheldon's during one of the events, there are a lot of families here, a lot of underage people, so I certainly, in addition to the past practice, I just think it's good practice to make sure that we know where alcohol is moving and how it's being consumed and by whom.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Is there a motion to continue the remainder of the request to our meeting on June 10th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. You can contact the office in the morning to get the specifics about the license.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, we have a secondhand license for Tom's Collectibles at 825 Washington Street. Is there a representative? Okay, if you can come up to the microphone, please give your name and address for the
Yeah.
record.
My name is Thomas Cavallari. I live at 58 May Lane here in town.
Okay.
It's 807 Washington Street, actually.
I think it's 25, but the application says 807.
Okay.
So through the chair, we can double-check this on the application. I know our office had made a note. It was originally submitted as 807, but in looking at the actual address through the assessor's office, it shows as 825, which is why that note is there. One may be the address of business, and one could just be the map block lot address. We can check on that, but
One moment, please.
both of those are on the application to cover the property.
Go ahead.
Harry Kotze owns the property, but also owns next door, so I'm not sure if that's, so...
We can check that and make sure that it's verified, but we wanted to get both on here because the assessor's maps does show something a little different.
Other questions or comments on this?
I guess my question is, should we approve it not knowing what the address is?
Through the chair, I think you could do that conditional upon the confirmation of the correct legal address. Since we're showing two, we will verify that with the assessor.
I know in the past that occasionally when parcels are owned by the same person, the land use system combines them, so maybe that's why.
Correct. I believe it's probably something to that effect.
So we adopted the policy, I want to say about 3 years ago regarding secondhand licenses, and there was an issue in town with secondhand shops taking in, there were a lot of house breaks taking in stolen property, and we just recently became aware that you didn't have the license. I know you've been operating for many, many years, but if the board approves this license, which there doesn't seem to be any concern, this would authorize the Auburn Police to just check your records to be sure. We're not saying that you are, but that by having this license, you're authorizing them to come in, check your inventory, just like they do to any other secondhand shop, to ensure that people who are looking to get rid of some stolen items aren't hitting our local secondhand shops.
Yep, I understand, yep.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Are there any abutters here? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it, failure to comply with any and all. The condition shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed on the license, with the extra caveat that we will, that the office will verify the address before issuing the license.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for coming in. I'll entertain a motion to move up agenda item 6A, request from the police department to declare surplus equipment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. I don't have a copy of the letter. Sharon, do you have a copy of the letter? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Sergeant Greg Wildman from the Auburn Police Department. Would you like me to read the letter, or if you have a copy, did you want to ask any questions?
Did everyone get a copy of the letter from the chief? No, we have the letter in front of us, so it's pretty standard. You have two cruises to be declared surplus,
Yes, ma'am.
and dispose of them the way you have always in the past.
Correct. The Highway Department usually participates in a auction.
Do you have any questions, comments? Thank you for waiting.
No problem.
I make a motion that we approve the request to declare the two vehicles as outlined in the letter from the police chief dated, refresh my memory,
Dated 5/9.
5/9/19, and to follow the normal process.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Thanks for coming
Okay.
in.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'll entertain a motion to move up agenda item, Board of Selectmen items. I was thinking more the solid waste, because Darlene is here. So there.
And we move up item 5.
What number did you go with?
5E.
5E, yep. 5E, discussion and vote on the increase in solid waste fees. All those in favor? Any opposed? So voted. Can you come up, Darlene, and sit up here so we can hear you better? And I just want to, for the record, note that a representative from the Telegram is here, and he is making an audio recording. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just identify yourself for the record, please.
Of course. Darlene Coyle, Director of Development and Inspectional Services, and
Virginia Marchant, Chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Mrs. Coyle.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come tonight. So at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, we came to identify that the solid waste fee increase proposal was being presented to the board. I have been working with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for some time now, and the fees come to our attention over the past, the recent past, that the solid waste fees are not covering the cost for the service. There's been a number of things that have happened over the past year and a half in the solid waste industry, and the committee has taken a look at the fees, and we've also spoken with the Chief Financial Officer regarding the indirect costs and expenses associated with solid waste. So working with the committee and looking at surrounding towns and expenses, we have come up with a solid waste increase proposal before you for what we're hoping is something that we would like to look at on a regular basis, an annual basis, to make sure that costs are keeping up with what the service fees are. It's been some time since the fees were last raised. It's been approximately about 6 years. So we wanted to let the public know. It's been several years since that has happened, so that has been a good thing. However, with the very dynamic changes that are happening in solid waste and recycling, processing costs, and the service fees are something that we need to take a look at.
Questions? Mr. Carpenter, then Mr. Berthium.
If I can, through the chair, just ask Mrs. Coyle just to explain who would be eligible for a small total, which is the lowest increase that we currently show. Can you just explain that just for people? I know I didn't know, so
Sure.
it's good information to have out there.
Thank you very much. So on the solid waste increase proposal, there are different categories, if you will. So we have different size toters. We have a small toter, 35-gallon toter, and we have a large toter, 64-gallon toter, and then we have a 96-gallon and a 35-gallon for the recycling toters. And then we also have multifamily costs, 2, 3, and 4 families. When the Solid Waste Advisory Committee was looking at what the increase in cost in order to cover the deficit, we also wanted to keep in mind that any increase in cost is always something that can cause some concerns for residents. And we thought that the small toter cost, that fee is small, or smaller than, as small as the committee could propose. So that increase is $5 per year, and the increase in cost for the large toter service is $25 a year. And the thinking on that was a lot of the customers for the small toter are going to be people that may be single or living alone, or are elderly residents, and any increase in cost is going to have a big impact on their budget. So the committee was very mindful of that, and we had many different versions of what the increases would be, and this was an increase that we thought may also allow some people to take a look at what they have for trash and what they're putting out. If somebody has a large toter service that they're not generating a lot of trash and they're not filling that toter, the idea is perhaps somebody could go to a smaller toter and get a decrease in the fee. So although there are increases, if you were to go from a large service to a smaller toter service, then that might be a little bit easier for people to handle.
Darlene, can you talk a little bit about the small toters and whether they're allowed to put out additional bags with the small toters?
Sure. So with the small or the large toter, we do have blue overflow bags. I just say blue because that's the color of them. And those overflow bags are to be used by anybody that can't fit the trash, that has more trash than what they can fit in their toter. So whether it's a small toter or a large toter, if there's any overflow of trash, sometimes different times a year around holidays, or if you're having a party, you generate a little bit more trash than normal. You can get the blue bags. They're sold at 3 of the supermarkets. We have Shaw's, Park and Shop, and then the Price Chopper that's on the Worcester-Auburn line down by the old fair. And those stores sell the blue overflow bags. As you may recall, last year, we took a look at that pricing also, and we had an increase in those bags, and the hope was to get people to recognize that we're hoping people can take a look at what they're putting in their trash, and if there's items to be recycled, take those out. So we spend a lot of time on education, and we've been very fortunate to use some of our recycling dividends money. You'll actually hear about that.
So just for clarification on the small toters, because I think that there's an interest for, people going, if someone downsizes to the small toter, they're not, say, if 5 times a year they have more trash than what will go into the small toter, they're not restricted in use of those blue bags?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Carpenter.
So eligibility is single families, correct, for the small toter, so you don't
Single
have to
family.
be- you could just be a couple, you could be maybe 3 people.
Single-family homes,
Just a
yeah.
single family. So I think that's important for the public to know that and as you say, if you're not filling it, why pay the higher price when you can switch? And if you have use of the overflow bags, especially at Christmas time, you're still going to save a lot of money. So I think that's a good thing. Thank you.
Mr. Berthiel.
Question I had, because a few questions got answered, so I thank you for that. But is there an opt-out, or is there, can people that are, say, single in a single home and they're one trash bag and they can dispose of it at work or whatever, what is that process? Just let you know?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So the town of Auburn does offer this municipal program for solid waste and recycling. However, people do not have to use this service if they feel that they want to get their own private hauler. The requirement is that you would have to use a licensed hauler. The Board of Health licenses trash haulers. So we do have a list, a yearly list of the licensed trash haulers. You would just have to choose somebody from that list, and then there's a form that you would fill out that identifies that you've got a contract with that licensed hauler. So there's paperwork to be done, but there is definitely, that's available to residents.
So to continue with that, then, you have to be on contract with somebody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so the reason for that is we want to make sure everybody's disposing of solid waste in a responsible way. So you can either use a municipal system or you can go with a private hauler. We want to make sure the private hauler is disposing of trash legally.
Go ahead.
To continue the discussion, do we have some sort of a handshaking with Leicester, with their landfill, or with any other landfill? And is that not for solid waste, or?
So if I can just maybe try to clarify, the handshake that you may be referring to, so Leicester does not have municipal trash service. However, they do have a transfer station, and they have transfer station recycling center. They have a very active recycling center. So if somebody calls our office and they have a hard-to-get-rid-of item that we can refer them to the Leicester Recycling Center, that's actually something that we do. And that's part of our grant application process. We have a relationship, if you will, with that town, so that if somebody is trying to do something responsible and get rid of, say, a microwave or a TV or really, they have everything that you can think of, recyclable batteries. It's usually like a larger type item. We refer them to the Leicester Recycling Center. Is that what you're referring to?
I think so, yeah. I knew there was some sort of a way that we could utilize Leicester for something. I wasn't sure of the whole realm of it.
Sure.
So that was a good explanation of it. Thank you.
Okay. And they do have a landfill there, but it's capped. It's no longer active.
So you're here tonight for asking the board to vote on an increase of the solid waste fees. So I just want to just be clear on something, mostly for the record. So trash fees are user fees, correct?
That's correct.
And so over the last few years, the user fees and the trash revenue have not met the trash cost because of increased cost. So first, let me ask you, do you know what percentage of residents are not using the town trash? If you have, just ballpark, if you have a...
I know we have approximately about 5,100 users on the municipal service.
So the remaining residents who are not on the municipal service are currently subsidizing the trash costs because we've now had to take it out of tax dollars because we don't have enough revenue in user fees to meet the trash costs. So people who are on a private trash service are not only paying their private trash, but they're subsidizing user fees through their tax dollars.
So we obviously want to make sure that we're not making people that aren't on the system pay for the system, and that is why.
That's why we need to do this. This is why we need to do this, because the user fees are not covering the trash costs.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Berthium.
One last question is, with these increases, have you projected out, 3 to 5 years, that the cost of the service is going to go up? And so will these increases sustain those increases for the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, should we be expecting you to come back in 2 years and with another increase, or I'm just wondering how far you might have projected with that?
Sure. So that's a fair question. I can tell you that the Solid Waste Advisory Committee looked long and hard on this, and the proposed increase here that you have is to cover our immediate need. However, as you can see on some of the multis, the multifamily cost are not entirely covering what the service is. So this was done for an immediate need. However, the committee is committed to looking at it going forward to try to make sure that the cost of what the user is equal to what the fee is. Does that make sense? Do you, the multi?
If I can add in also, so as Darlene said, right now we're looking at this for an FY20 fee. We fully anticipate having to come back in the next fiscal year, likely to have to change this because our contract with Republic will expire in a year. So until we know what those costs are going to be a year from now, we can't say that these will continue to cover our costs. This will cover us for FY20. We anticipate that there will be additional costs given what's happening in the global economy with regard to recycling and solid waste. And I think what Darlene is pointing out in the committee, I want to thank the committee because they did a great job on this. It's a difficult process to get through, but they analyzed it very carefully. And I think what you can see here, it's just an interesting part on your chart. Right now, if the single-family users, if the multifamily users were paying the same parity-wise as the single-family users. The multifamily users would pay, if there were two, it was a two-family, they'd pay 216 times 2 for a large toter. Right now, they do not. So we're trying to move toward making it more equitable so that the multifamily users, regardless of whether there's 2, 3, or 4 families there, would pay the same as a single-family user per family. So right now, it should be based on per family, and it's really not. It's based on the type of unit that you reside in. So we're trying to make that correction, but my understanding is the committee didn't want to make such a drastic shift all at once. But I think the idea is to phase this in so that at some point, there is equity amongst all the users. So it doesn't go by whether you live in a multifamily or a single family, it goes by you are a family. And as a family, you have a choice of a single or a large.
Other questions? Yes.
I just have a
Mr.
comment.
Laliberte,
Just another
go ahead.
question. I was just going to repeat my comment from the last meeting, which is, again, thank you to Mr. Coyle and to the Solid Waste. I know there's some in the audience, too, for all the work that you put into this. And I know that it's pretty volatile and kind of determined with things going on internationally, so I know that it's hard to make predictions for the future, but thank you again for all the work that you put into it.
If there's nothing else on this, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the solid waste fees as proposed based on memorandum of April 18, 2019 for the fiscal year 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to move up town manager and agenda item 6B.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. So this is the vote to authorize the application for the Mass DEP Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant and accept the funds. Yeah, I'm going to. Hi. How are you? Amy, we know who you are, but if you could just give your name for the record,
Sure,
please.
I'm Amy Sullivan, and I volunteer as the recycling coordinator.
Very important, you volunteer. We thank you for that, everything you do. So there's a grant application.
So you've heard the bad news, the recycling markets have changed, processing costs have increased. The good news is the state is still offering, or once again offering, grant money to municipalities to help with outreach and education. We've gotten money in the past. We're going to probably get more this year, hopefully. We've had some really good initiatives over the past year. We've done a lot of promotion of waste reduction measures and recycling, correct ways to recycle. We had Erica on board. So we will apply, if we're approved to apply for the grant, we will continue with our education and outreach, and have a couple of new initiatives. We may be offering subsidized compost bins to help keep food scraps out of trash and recycling, because as we know, those are very heavy, so that's one initiative. We're going to work on the textile initiative, recycling, making sure textiles are kept out of trash and recycling bins. They don't belong there. They should go in donation boxes.
Questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we authorize the application and an acceptance of the funds for the Mass DEP Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you guys for all your work. Mrs. Coyle, do you have any other agenda items? Okay, we'll go back to our regular agenda then. Thank you for waiting. Just make sure we haven't skipped anything. Going back to agenda item 5C, gift acceptance in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to the library from the Auburn Women's Club. We have a donation of $25, a designated use, a library book. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? So voted. To DDIS, from a Good Samaritan at the townwide cleanup on May 4th, 2019, in the amount of $10. The donation will go towards the Kathleen Sabina Animal Compound. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude?
Is there a second?
Second.
Just under discussion, I wish Darlene was still here. I was down at the fire station when a resident pulled up and handed her $10 and just wanted to thank her for everything the town was doing that day. And you would have thought that someone gave her $1 million. She was very excited, and she just did an amazing job that day. So, but the resident, it just meant a lot to her to just stop by and say, I couldn't help, but I wanted to make a donation because it's a great event, so.
And she actually expected to have to pay to drop off the items, so she felt she didn't have to pay, so why not have the town on the first.
So, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed, so voted. And from the Hometown Bank, who's always so supportive, in the amount of $2,500, and this is towards the Independence Day celebration.
Motion we accept, and that a letter be drafted for the chair's signature.
Is there a second? Was that Mr. Berthium? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Mr. Chair, if I can also
Yes.
just thank Hometown Bank. We have applied every year, I believe, for the last 4 years through one of their community grant programs to receive these funds. It's phenomenal. This allows us to actually pay for the concert, and it also provides about $500 on top of that for additional costs to offset all the various things that we take on for that event for the community. So Bank Hometown has been wonderful. We're just thrilled that we have that opportunity.
Thank you. Moving on, proclamations and recognitions. We have a request for Girl Scout Silver Award recognition, and for those of you who don't know, this is a Girl Scout Silver is the highest award a girl can earn in Girl Scouts in grades 6 through 8, and then they move on to their high school years where they hopefully work towards a Girl Scout Gold. But we do have a young lady here in Auburn who has attained the Girl Scout Silver, Caitlin Sherman.
Motion to issue the proclamation?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you. We have taken care of the solid waste. We have a request for a drain layer's license who has been previously licensed in the past 5 years, so no need to come before the board. It's for JD Construction at 33 Santam Street here in Auburn. The application is complete. We have a memorandum from Mr. Jeff Mitchell on the application, all the required insurance documents. Do board members have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town, canvas departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failed to comply with any and all conditions shall invalid the license and render it null and void.
Second.
Second, Mr. Berthium, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So voted. We've taken care of the first, well, we've taken care of the town manager items. Do you have anything else?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have no tabled items. Under Board of Selectmen items, Mr. Liberty, do you have this as an item? I know you had wanted to wait for a full board, and Mr. Holstrom was called away for work out of state. Do you want to continue it tonight or hold it?
We can talk about it briefly.
Go
Just
ahead.
to explain it a little bit. I noticed that in the Mass Legislature, H720 is a bill that's been proposed, I think, by Harriet Chandler, and co-sponsored by like 40 other House members, to allow municipalities that adopt the bill to lower their municipal voting age to 16. A couple communities in Massachusetts have already taken votes by their, I guess that was a Board of Selectmen, and actually it might have just been Town Council in Northampton. I'm not familiar with their form of government there. But they voted to try to do it on their own, so has Cambridge, and I believe Somerville is also looking into it. So it's something that interested me. I wanted to bring it before the board, the full board, and currently the H720 is in the Joint Committee on Elections, or Election Rules, right now, where it's being debated. I intended to write a letter of support for the bill, And I was hoping that we could bring this before our board. Other boards that have started to look towards this direction have sent in letters of support for the bill. So that's something that I wanted to know if there was any interest in exploring from the other members, if we could write a letter from the full board in support. This is something that has interested me because I know that when other places have dropped their voting age, they've noticed that people that are still in those civic education classes are actually more likely to vote than people in the 18 to 25-year-old range. And other studies have shown that the younger a person is when they first vote, the more likely they are to be a voter for life. And Auburn's been a leader in civic education. I mean, our We the People program has been outstanding for the last 6 years or 7 years or so. So I think we've been a leader in the field, and it's something that we should continue to support. So I wanted to bring it before the board and see if there was any interest in coming to something as a full board and saying that we support the legislation.
Do I comment?
And I wouldn't ask for a vote or anything tonight without a full board anyway, so.
I'd like to look at it. I mean, I know some communities have already adopted it themselves, so maybe we can be ahead of the curve for a change and not behind the curve.
So just for clarification, any communities that have adopted it, that's for local elections only?
Right, it would be only for local elections, and so the communities that have adopted it are still waiting for, some communities have tried, and then the legislature denied them the ability to do so.
Right.
There are some communities that are still trying. There were, I think the one for Cambridge is still in the legislature now, and then this one, H720, which is the one that I'm talking about, would allow any community that wants to do it in the future instead of seeking special permission from the legislature.
So, go ahead, Mr. Bertheum.
I would just say, I have kind of mixed feelings on it right now. The biggest part of me feels that, although we do have a great civic program with the We the People, I think it's a kind of a very small part of our teenage population. So my first gut feeling is that, we give that option to kids that maybe aren't understanding issues, aren't understanding the topics, and that they are probably just being persuaded by how their parents are voting. So for that reason, I have some hesitation. So, but I clearly have always had an open mind with anything that's brought to the board. So I would like to look further into it. If we had to vote tonight, I would probably vote no. But because you're not forcing a vote, I think that's great, and I'm happy to look more into it.
So my comments are similar to both Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Bertheum. We represent the people, and I personally have not been outreached by anyone looking to lower the age. I'm absolutely willing to start the discussion, and if there is interest in town, but to have the board right now just send a letter to the joint committee would be, in my view, just our own personal views, because we haven't heard from residents on this. And I can only speak for myself, but unless I was unsure on what you said, Mr. Bertheum, you haven't heard from people on lowering it?
I haven't, and again, certainly I totally appreciate everything that you've done, and especially with the We the People, and I definitely encourage you, if that's your belief, you definitely should write that letter. I personally wouldn't be ready to write that letter right now, but I totally support you with that, so.
And if you can get young people involved, I'll shake your hand, because it's like pulling teeth trying to get, no matter what their views are, I just want people to be involved, and it's certainly been a struggle. And I know several years back, I'm not even sure if she's still there now, Ms. Bazinet, who was a teacher at the school, and she tried to form, I think they ended up calling it the Young Politicians Club, so it didn't have political affiliation, and they really struggled with getting people involved. I would love to see people involved. And hopefully, starting this conversation, we'll get people talking, older people like me, to say, come on, young people, let's get involved so we can have, confidence in giving you, the 16-year-old, that vote. And if you can do it, I'm all for it.
Well, like I said, in the past, when things like this have been done, I think Austria was the big example. They were the first European Union country to lower their voting age. They saw that 16 to 17, the people voting at age 16 and 17 was significantly higher and remains significantly higher than those 18 to 21 range. So it does seem to go up, and it brought up their voting rates in general. And I guess we just heard tonight, we've had pretty low voter turnout, as everyone does. It's not a Auburn-specific
Millbury
problem.
was 6% last week, so it's crazy. So we'll move this to tabled items so it doesn't fall off of our radar, and just keep us updated as to, and if people reach out to us, we'll let you know as well. Mr. Berthew?
I was going to say, along those lines, I would certainly encourage the high school to run a mock election, and I'd love to hear students' views on it. I'd love, if they wanted to take the ballot items and run a mock election and start to give us maybe a little bit of feedback to say, we ran a mock election, this is how many kids voted with the mock election, this is how they, voted on certain issues, and and I personally, as a candidate right now, had it been set up prior to now, I would have been happy to go in and be in front of the student body that would, 16, 17-year-olds, and have them raise issues and questions. I think that's an excellent way to start the process going. So I would definitely encourage that.
I think that's a great idea. I wish we had had that really sooner than the election's in a week, but
Yeah, but there's always an
something that we can write.
So.
Just before we
Yep.
depart, maybe I would suggest that maybe the board contact Mr.
Hanfield?
Hanfield. And, they do have one advantage over every other voter.
They're there.
They're actually physically at the polling site. So if we wanted to do something like that.
I'm happy to outreach, because it's a lot to put into a letter, but we can let him know that we had discussion and what our thoughts were, and see if there's a teacher interested in taking the lead on that, unless you prefer a letter.
Well, I'm just thinking it's formal, but I mean, if
We can send a letter, if you want to make that motion.
I would make a motion that we reference the bill numbers that Mr. Liberty provided, and we send a letter to the principal with a copy to the superintendent, signed by the chair, just making them aware of our discussion and ask them to weigh in if they so choose.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Anything else on this?
No, that's it. Thank you.
And,
Through the chair, if we could, sorry, can you just repeat the bill numbers since you referenced them in one of them?
Or
Just wanna make sure.
H720 and S389.
Thank you.
There's nothing else on that. Moving on to public comment. I know there's no one here, but I really want to extend my sincerest congratulations to Tristan LaLiberty, who graduated from UMass Amherst this weekend. I mean, 4 years is a huge commitment of time, study, and commitment to your future. We know that big things are coming for you. I'm not sure what your plans are for grad school, but I think this board and the residents here in Auburn are confident that we're going to see big things happening in your life in the near future.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Too bad we didn't have a proclamation.
Well, we would have needed his vote, and he would have, but not. So, no, really, I, of course, we're Facebook friends, so saw some wonderful pictures on Facebook, and of course, you know, being a mom, you know, the proud mom always jumps out at me, and your entire family there supporting you and friends, and, you know, it's a great time in your life, and congratulations.
Well, thank you again. That was very kind.
So, if there's nothing else on that, we have the minutes of March 25th and April 8th. Are there any corrections or omissions?
See any?
Seeing none, the chair will accept them as written. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? We are adjourned. Have a great night.